Hi folks, it's Dr. Smith, i.e. Smitty, and Miss Katie, and today we have a new game. Well, that's what you expect, right? What new game do we have today, Toots?
Red Sun and Blue Cross.
And what is it about?
Teddy Roosevelt?
Well, indirectly. It's about the Russo-Japanese War of 1904-1905. And what do you know about that?
Not a darn thing.
Well, you're probably like a lot of folks. But it reminds us a little bit of Pearl Harbor. And what did the Japanese do at Pearl Harbor? It was a surprise attack, wasn't it?
They bombed the crap out of us.
But it was a surprise attack, no declaration of war. And that's how this war started, with the Japanese attacking the Russians at Port Arthur.
Okay.
But why are we trying to get this video done right now?
Why?
What are we doing Monday?
We are leaving for Colorado.
For a road trip, aren't we?
Road trip.
So we need to get this done.
Yes.
So it's as always, we thank you. Miss Katie will wave at you. I'll show them your pretty t-shirt today. It's her kitten tiara t-shirt. It's a kitten princess shirt. So as always, we thank you, folks. What words do you say next?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hi folks, it's Smitty again, and what do we have again? Well, we of course have Petunia back here. Petunia's my girl. All one eye of her. We have again Red Sky, Blue Cross. Correction, Red Sun, Blue Cross. So, Miss Katie, you should not allow me to try to read anything without my glasses. You know better than that.
My bad.
So, Miss Katie held this up earlier, small box, and it is by BonSai Games. And of course, this came to us from Quarterdeck International. And who's Quarterdeck International in Vicksburg? Jack
Green.
Green. So, we will do this very quick because you will see this in a subsequent video. Dice, control markers. Ooh.
Unpunched counters.
Unpunched counters without stickers, so Miss Katie is happy. Small counter sheet. And we've got Miss Frankie now. We have 2 player aid cards. And we have a small mounted map. And like I said, we're going to be looking at all these in greater depth in my segment. That's not for Miss Katie to try to focus in on and then have me have to deal with the fallout at bedtime. The rule book, well, I can't read it. But thankfully, Jack Green supplied in a folder, a blue folder no less. Okay, blue, Penn State, blue infantry. Wow. But Jack ended up with a nice rule book here. And see right there, Quarterdeck International. Jack, am I plugging it enough? But it's a good rule book. It's big. Now, of course, it's not going to, well, it doesn't fit in the box, does it? But that's a small thing. Now, let's talk about how this war came about. It came about, in short, because the Russians refused to allow the Japanese to come into Manchuria. And they kept delaying and delaying, and finally the Japanese had had enough. So the Japanese launched a surprise attack at Port Arthur, sank a couple of Russian ships, and the war was started. Much like Pearl Harbor, surprise attack. Well, the Russians were kind of itching for a fight as well, because the Tsarist government was always sort of in a weakish state, so they figured, here's an easy win. They're Japanese. We're Europeans. We're gonna win. Well, it turned out to be anything but. The two books I will recommend, 100 decisive battles. Little nice write-up on Toshima, and of course we talked earlier, well, Admiral Togo's there. What admiral that everybody knows of the Japanese from World War II was at this battle as well? Yamato. Admiral Yamato was at this, and he might have been a young ensign. I'm not certain if he was an ensign at that point or a young sea cadet, but he was there. And I like 100 decisive battles anyway. But what's interesting is it segues from Manila Bay to Toshima. And then, of course, probably the favorite book my dear mother ever gave to me was Clear for Action, which had a nice little chapter in it on the Russo-Japanese War, which I kind of didn't know about as a kid. This is one of my favorite books of all time. At one point I thought I'd lost it, and I was seriously aggrieved. Good little section in here. What is interesting at the Battle of Toshima, the Russians suffered approximately 10,000 casualties. The Japanese, depending upon whose numbers you want to buy, roughly 1,000. The Russian fleet was wiped out. Some of it ended up being interned in Manila. But in general, the entire Russian fleet was wiped out. They continued to fight. Finally, some surrendered, but others turned over at night as they tried to limp away from the battlefield. So this was a complete disaster for Russia and helped lead to the revolution in 1905. What is also interesting is I was talking about this. One of the incidents from this was the Battle of Dogger Bank. And what was that? When the Russian fleet, and this was the Baltic fleet that sailed from Leningrad, correction, St. Petersburg then, from St. Petersburg the whole way around the world, fired on British fishing boats at Dogger Bank and created a huge diplomatic incident. And I was talking today to my Air Force students about that, who had never heard of it. Had you ever heard of it until now? If not, you learned something by watching Smitty's videos tonight. Thank you as always. We'll look at the components here in just a moment. Bye-bye. All right, folks, here's the cover, and in the background moving, you can see Petunia. It's a nice cover. We got Japanese ships steaming at Toshima. The back, well, the back has very little English on it. And I do mean very little. But nice back, interesting, and it's a shame I can't read Japanese. But what's very good about it, or Chinese in this case, but what's really good about it is it gives you a sense of play and that it is an area movement game. Okay, folks, here is the map stood up. You can see the various sea areas. There are what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Yellow Sea, the East China Sea, Toshima, the Sea of Japan, the Pacific Ocean, and the Philippine Sea. And look who shows up. It's Petunia, folks. So there we have that. Of course, the POC, the point of control, and the turn record. And it's funny because I was actually talking about the Russo-Japanese War today. Here are the game counters. And of course, we see here the various admirals, and mainly Admiral Togo, who's the most famous because his battle flag flew on the mast of a Japanese aircraft carrier to launch the Pearl Harbor attack. So rather simple counters. You got the 6 and 5 for probably attack and defense. Let me go look at the rules that Jack sent me. Hold on one, please. It's a good thing that I looked, because I could have guessed either way and I'd have been wrong one way or the other. The 6 is the attack strength. The 5 is the speed. Except for if a ship is damaged. Then it becomes attack, defense strength, and then we have the speed. So ships, of course, get damaged. Now, we also have here in the game, we have 2 of these. We have a player's aid card. I like player aid cards. And it makes it a very easy, quick step how to play, and the operations phase. But the most important part is the combat phase. And how does combat work here? Well, let's look at the attack procedure. Attack says that the game has a tactical decision. Really? A game this scale is a tactical decision? The tactical decision is determine how many dice to roll. The amount of dice you roll then leads into the fire resolution. If you roll on your die a result that is equal to or less than the sum of all your gunnery strength, then a hit or hits will occur. So that's your tactical decision. Kind of an interesting concept, but it also have a thing called critical hits. You have regular hits and critical hits, and so that if you roll 2 3s or 2 of any number, that would become a critical hit. Critical hits are in addition to normal hits. Let's go on a little more about the combat side of this. The critical hits are assigned by the firing player. So if I would choose probably in this case, say if I was attacking the Russian fleet, I would go after one of the more important battleships. What would happen then is that would flip over, and any other hits absorbed would also become hits. But critical hits, and those are the ones that when you roll 2 the same number, are assigned by the firing player. So that's an interesting little twist on the game here. So that what that means then is that if you assign all the hits and there are leftover numbers, well, you would just absorb those as the other player if you decided to sink one of your other ships. So you could absorb a number of hits by sinking a ship if it's equal to its defensive factor. Interesting concept. Look, little more work than you might think at first, or it seems like it, but it's really not. So in this case, if it was flipped over and you wanted to only assign 3 hits to 3 other ships, you would then go ahead and use, say there were 6 hits total. There were 6 hits total, and you took 1, 2, 3. Well, you flipped 3 Japanese ships over. And here then you would absorb the remaining 3 hits by sinking this ship. Kind of a neat idea. I find that very neat.